All right. Go time.
So.
All right. I want to welcome everybody to the December 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Whitley County Board of Zoning Appeals. We will call the meeting to order at this time, and we have the minutes from the previous meeting in front of us. Oh yes, roll call first, please. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Kelly Sheese.
Here.
Danny Wilkinson.
Here.
Doug Wright.
Here.
Joe Wolf.
Here.
And Mr. Jack Green.
Here.
Okay, now we have the minutes of the previous meeting in front of us. If everybody's taken a look at that, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting.
I'll make a motion that we accept the previous minutes. Second.
Jack has made a motion. Doug has seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, it is unanimous. All right. To give you guys an idea of how we will run the meeting, we will start with old business and move through new business. We will ask the petitioner to come forward, state what it is you want to do with your variance or special exception, and that you'll have time to talk. When you do come to the podium, please state your name and address for the public record. After that, we will open the public hearing for those to speak for, against, or who have questions. So, and we will provide time for the petitioner to answer questions at that time. So, but first, anyone who has any idea that they may speak tonight for any reason, for, against, or questions, please stand now at this time, and our legal counsel, Liz Deckard, will give you the oath. If you have any idea that you may speak, do it now, because we will not offer it again. We need to move this meeting along in a timely fashion. We have 6 items of business, and we are going to put a hard stop at 11 o'clock. Public hearings will be closed at 10 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Will you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that any statements you make before the board tonight will be the truth? If so, state I do.
I do.
You can be seated.
All right. Our first item is a piece of old business. It's a development standard variance by Ricardo, Hernandez, and Gilda, Cedona. The address is 5510 East Collins Street. The property is currently zoned rural residential. And that the petitioner, owner of the subject property, are requesting a development standard variance of required front setback, side setback, and minimum square footage for a new dwelling. The property is located at 5510 East Collins Street in Section 28 of Smith Township and is comprised of lots 32 and 33 of the Roach addition of the town of Collins. The property is currently improved with a dwelling and a smaller outbuilding. Staff, your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So going to the slides. As you said, this is located at 5510 East Collins Street, / a address to be determined on North 550 East. So 5510 Collins Street is the address of the existing house, which this property is actually comprised of 2 platted lots. What we're looking at is the southern of the 2 platted lots. It is divided by a platted alley. Zoned RR, rural residential, about a little over 1/10 of an acre. As you said, it's lot 33 of Rex Edition, platted in 1872, and lot 32 is also owned by the petitioner. What is being proposed is to construct a 20 by almost 21 by 44 foot, 1-story dwelling on lot 33. You can see there in the table and in the printed staff report the code requirements and the proposed setbacks and the required variances. Of note, the front setback requirement is 40 feet. This would be off 550. However, we can apply the averaging, and if we did that, that came out to a requirement of just over 19 feet. The proposed is 23.8 feet, so it is not compliant with that 40 feet per the code. However, it is compliant with the average setback. If that was the only issue we were dealing with, it would already be taken care of because of the averaging rule. However, because we have additional setback variances, it could come into the overall discussion of what we're looking at. So that front setback variance from the code would be 16.2. Both side setbacks under RR are 10 feet. Both side setbacks are proposed to be 5 feet. And as you know, 5 feet is a side setback that we do use in certain locations, lake residential being most frequent. So it's not unheard of, but it is not in RR as written. The rear setback does not apply because this is a triangular lot, and per the definition of how we apply setbacks, the rear setback would be eliminated. And then finally, the floor area is proposed to be 915 square feet. This, I believe, is going to be on a crawl space, so you don't have the benefit of any basement square footage. As you know, minimum floor area in RR is 950 square feet. If this was AG, we did eliminate the minimum square footage for dwellings in AG a year or so ago, but this still applies in RR. So the variances that we're looking at would be possibly front setback. Again, the code does allow for the averaging there. The 2 side setbacks and the floor area of a 35 square foot variance of living space. For reference, highlighted there in red is the subject property. 550 going here, 205 coming this way, the old railroad track right of way coming through here. And that is why we're dealing with a triangular piece. Closer view, the petitioner also owns this lot as well. As platted, just for reference, so you can see that this has been in this condition since it was platted in 1872. Definitely a lot of record by that standard. So this is the proposed plot plan. Again, as it's laid out, 5 foot minimums on north and south sides, 5.5 because of the angle of the lot here, 16 feet to this corner, and 23.8 to the right-of-way line of 550 out here. I believe I did mention in the staff report this could be turned 90 degrees so that it would be this direction and be at least more compliant, if not fully compliant. If we use the averaging rule, it would be more compliant with the side setbacks. However, the type of home it is, modular home, typically has a better aesthetic when you run it parallel to the road, so they're requesting to run it that direction. Additionally, if you turned it, it would feel like the front door would be coming off of the alley, which isn't an ideal situation either. So that is one reason for the request, and I'll let the petitioner, of course, talk more. A little bit more reference here. This is the plot plan overlaid on the aerial. And I also showed the dotted red line as the front setback as proposed so that you could line it up with the existing home to the north and to the south, and then a little bit broader view showing how it lines up with the additional homes. So you can see that this is, as proposed, the front setback would be, again, fairly in line with the existing homes, as evidenced by the averaging as well. Going to review criteria, won't really go into this too much. Staff doesn't feel like public health would be greatly injured unless there was not sufficient room for a septic system. These lots are on septic in Collins. The health department, as I understand it, has worked with the petitioner to identify a potential site for this septic system on this site. So if they're satisfied, I would be satisfied that public health would be protected. Public health in terms of living area can also be affected. I don't feel in this case that would be an injury. This is for the petitioner's own family, and the variance is pretty minimal, going only 35 square feet. Public safety is also not likely to be injured because the setbacks are similar. Use and value staff doesn't feel that the use would be particularly affected. This would be similar in nature to the other homes in the area. Value could have some impact. However, I don't feel that this would have substantial impact. And most of that impact would only come from the construction of anything on a lot that's been vacant since 1872, more than the actual home and setbacks involved and the variances involved. Strict application of the terms of the ordinance. We're dealing with a lot of record that dates from 1872, so right there is definitely creates a practical difficulty. Additionally, the triangular shape, as opposed to the standard rectangular lots that are in the rest of the plat, adds to that difficulty. As I mentioned, there is the alternative turning at 90 degrees, which would change the variances if not remove them. However, that does impact the aesthetics, which could affect use and value of the surrounding areas more than the variances would. So with that summary, any questions for me?
Seeing none, thank you, Nathan. Now, if the petitioner or representative of would please come forward. Please state your name and address and tell us what you want to do with your variance.
My name is Ricardo Hernandez. I live at 5510 East Collins Street. The reason we put in this petition in so we can build a house so our daughter can stay close to us, being that our health is declining. That way she can be able to take care of us accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Board, any questions of the petitioner? Seeing none, thank you. You can sit down. So,
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing for anybody to speak for or against, or who has questions of the petitioner.
My name is Brad Jenkins. I live at 5463 East 200 North, which is across the road from the proposed area. I do have a question. I understand that that you can be allowed to put a septic system on here, but what about a well? 0.13 acres. I've done some drawings and I don't see there would be a 50-foot space between the septic and the well, which does cause for a question on E. coli and whatnot. That is the Indiana code. I don't see how both can be fit on .13 acres. I just, has that been thought about? Has that been?
Nathan, we'll refer that to you.
It was my understanding that the health department had signed off on things with the petitioner, and we typically allow the petitioner and the health department to work things out separately. So it's my understanding that it is. However, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, I don't see it. And that is a health concern as a licensed plumber. I can tell you, I don't see how you can fit both a septic and a well on this plot of land. It doesn't matter how you configure the dwelling. The other thing is, you have an old house plus another house next to your adjacent property. How is this, aesthetically, it's going to be kind of a confined area, and the old house is kind of a ramble, and was kind of wondering what's the plans on the adjacent property as well. I don't know if that bears any decision in this, but it just seems like we've got two dwellings, one not occupied, one that is occupied. Now we're going to build a third dwelling adjacent to it. So that's my questions.
Okay, we'll have the petitioner answer those questions. They are able to. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Hernandez, would you like to come forth and answer these questions?
Yes. Good evening once again. We do have a well on our property at the time, so we were able to throw a line from our well to the agenda site.
So you have a well on lot 32, and you're going to run a line to lot 33.
Yes, we can do that, yes.
Okay. So, and the health department has okayed that, so.
We're working on it.
Okay. So.
Right.
Also, the question of the old house that is there, what is the future plans for it?
We're going to be living there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so I know it's been in a state of remodel for several years.
Yes,
So, and
we're
that,
actually working actively right now. I showed the picture. We already fixed the exterior part completely. We already worked with the septic tank, which proper being fixed. We have a proper well that is functioning. We are working and have a company that will come and get proper electrical and plumbing systems getting in place to the old house. So, and we already set up for inspections and everything, so it's coming up. We are really working hard on that. Sir?
Yeah.
And ma'am? Thank you.
all right. All right, as far as I know, that's it for now, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for or against, or questions?
Hi, I'm Nikki Geiger. We live at 2140 North 550 East, which is the property just south of the property we're talking about. And so my question isn't necessarily for them, it might be for you. There's a DNR property that runs between, where it's, so between us where the pool is and then there's that, used to be the railroad. Would they be allowed to come into that property is my question.
What do you mean by come into?
So the variance, is it coming into that property and will they be able to use that property further?
No.
Okay.
Short answer, no, they don't own that property. So the plot plan there overlaid on the aerial gives you an understanding of the setbacks there. So
the plan for well and septic is not going to come that way, is what I'm understanding you say.
Correct. It would need to be on this lot.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Anybody else to speak? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for discussion. Board, is there any discussion on this matter?
Do we have the option of in doing the approval, noting in there pending health department approval, just to make sure that we're aligned with that?
You can add conditions, yeah.
If there's nothing else, we'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve 25W variance 23 development sales fares for Ricardo Hernandez and Gilda Cedona, pending health department approval.
I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. To grant the variance with condition of health department approval. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. You may stay or you may leave, and if you have anything else to go on with your evening. So thank you very much.
I'll have a Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Okay, now moving on to new business. I am sorry if I am flipping papers up here, but I'm trying to keep everything straight. We'll move on to 25W variance 25, Vision Homes. Variance for off-premises construction signs. The petitioner is requesting a development standard variance to allow for placement of 4 off-premise construction signs and directional signs as part of the subdivision development at the north end of Sheldon Road. The zoning is currently AG, and the signs are proposed to be 4 foot by 8 foot in size. The 4 subject properties are located nearby intersections with sign placement to provide information and guidance to the subdivision locations. Properties are in the sections of 4, 16, 21, and 22 of Smith Township. Staff, your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you mentioned, this is a variance request for installation of 4 off-premise construction signs located in Smith Township, all of which are zoned on-site, zoned AG agricultural. They would announce and direct potential customers and residents to Arrowhead Ridge subdivision. The code requires and defines construction signs as what's written there. During the period of construction, a temporary sign advertising the construction of improvements on the premises can be erected on each perimeter street of frontage of the development. Can't exceed 32 square feet, 12 feet in height. Any illumination needs to be constant. Additionally, the code requires that any such signs, there's 2 sections, this is the one that applies here. Any such construction signs shall be removed within 2 years from the date of issuance or when 80% of the lots / dwelling units have been sold, whichever comes first. So the first portion says that it needs to be on premises, advertising construction of improvement on the premises. And the second is applying to just giving additional information about being on the premises The other section that applies is specific to the area that is actually under construction. And this is, none of these signs would actually be on the location of where these houses are being constructed. They're either going to be on additional property that is in the subdivision, or could be, or as proposed, all 4 signs would be off-site entirely and off the premises entirely. So the nature of the variances are to allow for these construction signs off premises, so off the property being constructed. You can see there in the table down below the 4 locations. The first would be number 1 is on the south side of US 33 of west of 550 East, on the north side of the property, of that subject property. It was reminded of me earlier today that US 33 was designated a historic byway back in 2011, and NDOT would consider this to be a billboard. Under our sign code, it was more restrictive to do it this way rather than considering these as billboards. Because NDOT does not allow new billboards along historic byways, I would actually suggest that this one, sign location number 1, won't even be approved by NDOT because of that. Sign location number 2 would be at the northeast corner of 550 East and Anderson Road, so just west of here. It was noted by the petitioner as potentially being a little smaller than 32 square feet in order to fit the location. Number 3 would be the south side of Anderson Road at the Sheldon Road intersection. So basically the subdivision is at the north end of Sheldon Road, so this would be on the south side of that T intersection as you come off Anderson Road and turn towards the subdivision. And finally, the last proposal is at the southeast corner of Blue Lake Road and State Road 205. This too would require NDOT approval because, again, they would define it as a billboard. However, the prohibition on billboards does not apply to State Road 205 as it does for US 33. So that potentially could receive NDOT approval if they were to look to seek it. The locations on the map here, location 1, this is County Road 550 and of course US 33 here. Location 2 at Anderson and 550, location 3 at Sheldon Road and Anderson, and finally Blue Lake Road and 205 down here. And the subject tract is here, subdivision. Highlighted in blue is the subdivision and a closer view of locations 2 at 550 and Anderson and 3 here. We received comment earlier today and was distributed to you that did mention and did the calculations for the amount of frontage to be compliant. You would be allowed, the petitioner would be allowed to have construction signs on their frontages. You have approximately 250 feet on Sheldon Road at the south side of the property and about 650 or so on this portion of the property here, which is platted as common area. So they do have some frontage. It is not on a prominent road. Anderson is far more prominent as a through road than Sheldon Road is, but they do have some frontage. They aren't completely lacking. Future subdivision or future sections would eliminate this frontage, however, because that would wind up becoming platted lots at some point in the future. This, as I said, would be common area. And then for reference, again, a little closer view, although they're still pretty small here. I apologize for that. Location 1, this is 550, and this is US 33 coming through here, and Blue Lake Road, Anderson Road, and 205 with sign location number 4 down here. Going to the review criteria, it doesn't seem, signs typically don't have significant impacts on health, and morals. And in this case, it doesn't seem that there would be much impact on safety. All of the regulations and standards that we have regarding setbacks, height, lighting, and so on are all to be met. The distance between these signs is significant, so you don't have multiple signs leading to distraction like we might see on a single property, for example. So it doesn't seem that there would be any injury to those factors. General welfare, of course, could be injured if we don't have a specific practical difficulty to apply to the site. Use and value of the area adjacent to each one of the locations. Again, because of the distance between each one, these are effectively individual signs. When viewed individually, the impacts on that surrounding area do not seem to be substantial. Again, we would still be compliant with any setbacks, the site visibility triangle, and so on, to make sure that that use would be protected. And if any of these properties could also currently, if they had improvements going on, have their own construction signs as well. However, because this is related to the subdivision, makes it off premises, and again, the nature of the variance. Finally, strict application of the terms of the code. Is that actually what we sent out? Or is this a draft version?
Yours may be a draft version.
Okay. The strict application of the code, you do have a subdivision that is somewhat buried behind and to the north of existing subdivisions, Horseshoe Bay, and a couple of the others. So this does lack some of the frontage that you would otherwise, that a subdivision otherwise might have if it did have frontage on a more prominent road. So there might be some practical difficulty because of that. They do, however, as I said, have some of their own frontage. Despite it being on a lesser road, it does have frontage. So that's something for you to weigh. And then, moreover, looking at the principle of minimizing the variance requested. So they're requesting 4 signs. I already said that 1 sign's unlikely to be approved by an outside agency. So they still have 3 other signs that would be off premises. Is that the minimum variance necessary? If there is a practical difficulty involved, you should also consider that as well. So not just being offsite, but also the number that would be offsite. So with that, any questions for me?
So area 3 is the actual location of the proposed subdivision?
No, it would be to the south end. So the blue area here on the screen is the area of the subdivision. Area 3 is down here, or location 3.
So there's not actually a sign proposed where the subdivision's going?
I'll let the petitioner confirm that, but no is the answer, other than the subdivision's own permanent signage.
And then who owns the properties? Take 1 out, 2, 3, and 4. Who owns the properties where these proposed signs are going to go?
I'll let the petitioner explain that.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Nathan? Seeing none, thank you, Nathan. Petitioner or representative of, would you please come forth and state what it is you want to do with your variance?
Good evening. My name is Ben Lovell. I live at 5983 US 33. I'm the project manager at Vision Homes. Mr. Bilker did a really good job at explaining what our intents are. In an effort not to create any more confusion, I'm happy to answer any questions. The one that you just asked, which I can answer, Mr. Bob Green owns the one that's closest to Sheldon Road. Lakeview Farms, which is Don Shear, he owns the one that's at 550 in Anderson and the one that is at Blue Lake. So those are the two. So he owns both sides of that. So there are two people, but he owns, that'd be number 2 and number 4.
Correct.
Okay, number 2 and number 4. And then Jeremy Barron owns the one that probably won't work, just for clarification. And I have gotten, which you guys might have in front of you, I have permission to speak on their behalf, notarizing it. And there, forgive me, the one that is going to be at 515 Anderson is not going to be a big sign. Our intent is probably to use what we are currently using for Vision Homes. If you've seen them around the Whitley County and Noble area, I'm going to say they're less than 10 square foot. They look like real estate signs. They're powder coated. Our intent is to make them look visually appealing. We're working with 46 graphics for the other signs that if we are approved, they suggest using ACM, which is aluminum composite metal material, aluminum composite material, which is what they suggest. Is say when we're going to make an exterior sign, this is what we suggest. We'll make it. I'm a graphic designer by trade, so I'm taking an immense amount of care to make sure this is not an ugly sign. I want these signs to look visually appealing. I actually care about that. I have a little bit of pride involved in saying, like, when I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. And I care about that stuff. So when I do these, we're going to try to do this right. We're keeping everything above board. We're going to be very honest with our intents. We're not trying to sneak something by. It's, we're trying to be very open with why it is. The reason why it's 4x8 is the requirements say it has to be 32 square foot or less. And so a 4x8 sign, make sure it's visible, and just be very straightforward about it.
So the smaller one you said at 515 East and Anderson Road, if it's that small, does it even require?
Probably said it's off-site.
It's off-site and it's larger than what would be an incidental sign.
And why are you not using the area with the development to put a sign?
It's a good question. So one of the reasons is if I measured right, I believe it's a half a mile off the road, and Sheldon Road is a subdivision. For what it is worth, there's no when you think of, let's compare Anderson to Sheldon Road, it's a subdivision. I don't really want to put a sign equally so in the middle of somebody's subdivision. That doesn't look visually appealing to anybody. And so taking a 4x8 foot sign and plopping it right down, I wouldn't want to do that. I was just thinking about this. I have to go move signs right now, and I have to drive the post hole digger down, and it's during nap time. And being a dad, I just like cringe. I go, please, nobody be putting their kids to bed right now. I'm not digressing from the point to say, like, I actually do care about being a good steward of our time. When I know sometimes we can come across as the big bad construction company. That is not our intent. We live in Churubusco. Our business is in Churubusco. My family, I'm married into the Churubusco family. They've all went to Churubusco. Like, we actually want this city to succeed and continue to succeed. We hope, obviously, to build 48 houses, and that's tax dollars for Churubusco, for Whitley County. We want this to be successful. So when we get phone calls that say, hey, your construction drivers are driving a little too quick, we get on the phone with the construction drivers, we say this cannot happen. It is standard code that when we call our garbage people to say we need a new dumpster, it's we need a new dumpster, here's the overhead. Please do not drive more than 20 miles per hour in the construction zone. If you look at all of our invoices, there's these notes on the bottom that they send to their drivers that says, do not do this. We have a construction entrance on the south side that says, no construction vehicles after this point. We take those callers very seriously. We will not go beyond that point. Again, I'm not trying to digress to the point. I just want to try to paint the picture that I don't want us to come across as the big bad construction company, because that is not our intent. We take this stuff very seriously on making sure that we're very honest, very straightforward on all of this.
Is there any type of lighting that's going to be on these signs?
When I would think about it, I'd say, I don't know if anybody in the Sheldon area wants us to probably put lighting on it, but if it's, please put lighting on it, the answer to that would be yes. We'd be happy to do that.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this, so Liz, put me back in line.
Okay.
If not, are the places where you're proposing to put the signs receiving compensation for the sign placement?
I can answer that. I'm happy to answer that. No. No. Now I will say, like, are we happy to say thank you for that? Of course. Like, thank you, but none of them, which I'm very appreciative of Bob Green and Don Shear, they said, I called them because I know them, and I said, I would like to do this, and they said, absolutely, Ben, I'm happy to sign this for you. And I very much appreciate them. So I want to give them credit where credit's due. They never asked anything of us, and they won't.
And I understand the directional signs of it because of the construction side of it, and that because you'll have trucks coming both off of 33 and 205 trying to get to that site.
Yes.
And that I know already from the truck traffic that when they started to lay the roads for that subdivision, and that there were certain criteria that needed to be met. So. Any other questions of the petitioner?
I'm just worried about the traffic on the Anderson Road. All that traffic is coming on the Anderson Road, but that's all been approved. And they have roads in, they put it, they've invested a lot of money in this project.
I've watched the residential traffic off of Anderson to Sheldon Road. And I am just quite amazed by the amount of residential traffic that is there.
I've had to wait up to 13 to 15 cars before I pull out of my driveway coming out of there. But again, that's been approved. That's a whole different subject. We're talking about signs tonight. So.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. At this time, we'll open the public hearing for those to speak for or against, or who has questions. Please come to the podium, state your name and address.
I got some paperwork for you guys, just to make it clear and obvious what I'm talking about.
Please state your name and address first. So,
my name is Kirk Bratmiller. I live at 4637 North Sheldon Road in Churubusco.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's that one major point. This should make it easier to follow. It's nothing too crazy. So the front is just like the rules of the state and the zoning ordinance, and next is basically everything I'm going to say on the next page. Okay, would it be possible to bring up the actual proposed sign?
I don't have that on the PowerPoint. Okay. It is in your packet, however.
Okay, can you please? Okay. Yeah, they changed the signage apparently. But anyway, does this look like anything but an advertisement to you guys? Like when it started out, there was no directionality on this at all. It was all pointing to Churubusco. So the whole idea that we're pointing to the construction lot was just not true. This is literally just an advertisement. It even has build now, custom homes. I mean, it's an ad. Like, even if you go by the definition in the zoning ordinance, it says temporary sign advertising construction and improvements. This is advertising. This is an economic issue. It's not a land use issue. So when you're going to look for variance, you have to look at over here at 918.5, which gives you what you can allow for variance. And if you look at number 3 down here, practical difficulties, you brought it up on a slide earlier. This is an economic issue. You're going to run straight into case law that says again and again and again, you can't do this for economic reasons. It must always be for land use reasons. I gave you some case laws down here. This is only 2 of them. There's a mountain of them. So that's, like, there's no way you can approve it for variance given all of the case law going with it. Nathan also said that there is some slight way that this could be a practical difficulty, but there's even case law that I have right here from Seuss and Vogelsang. I can't pronounce that word, not German, but it's from 1472, and it says if it's self-created, He knew what this lot looked like when he bought it. It's a self-created problem that he doesn't have the frontage. So again, you cannot grant variance for an economic issue. You can't grant it for a self-inflicted issue. So we're not talking about anything to do with the signs or anything. It's just the general direct case law for this issue says you can't do it. Like, step one, fail. There's nothing to go on after that, really. In the packet stuff that I sent you guys earlier, I just want to make a little bit of a correction. He was right with the 32 feet, but we also didn't talk about, in the zoning ordinance, it says he can only have 2 signs because he only has 2 pieces of frontage. If he gets 3 to 4 all of a sudden, that's another piece of variance. I mean, it needs to also be addressed in this issue. But yeah, like I said, you can't grant variance for an economic issue. So it's about, there's no gray area. So that's what I need to say about that.
Thank you.
My name is Brian Bratmiller. I live at 4715 North Sheldon Road. And I want to just make some comments to you, if you don't mind. Yes, you guys are not trying to come across as a big bag builder. Understand, since this has started, what me and my family have went through. Okay? Understand, and I talked to Wayne on the brush pile that had poison ivy, poison oak, that were burnt directly behind my house, dropping ash on me during breakfast when I'm out on my back porch. Wayne and I talked about it. Okay, he said it was perfectly legal. I struggle to believe that. Okay, we have a retention pond. Okay, that doesn't drain. The water flows into it, sits in the bottom, and becomes stagnant and stinks. We have houses and stuff right next to it. Will you please bring this up to Wayne? How do we get this filled up enough to get the water out so it doesn't just lay there for weeks? Okay? You know, and again, we're trying to work with you guys. We live there. We pay taxes to these people that are supposed to protect us. Okay, these are just some of the things that's going on. The 20-mile-an-hour construction, great idea, until you're driving dump trucks at 6 a.m. in the morning down Sheldon Road where they have to ride their Jake brake in order to keep the speed down. Okay, 6 a.m. We just had somebody working on a slab directly behind our house. Okay, they're doing the groundwork. They had floodlights out after 9 o'clock. My grandchildren are trying to sleep. Okay, I'm
Mr.
trying to put them to
Bratmuller,
bed.
please, let's stick to the variance. So
okay, but
this
this is
time,
all
and
part of this is all,
you may talk to
this is all
petitioner at
part
that
of
time.
this is all part of this. Okay, I mean you're gonna now try to direct more traffic down our road that can't handle it. Okay, with the signs, this is all causing issues on our way of life that live there that we tried to bring up before. You know, this doesn't include the flooding issue that we had that was caused on the property they built that we had to pay for. So I'll drop it there. I'm happy to talk to Wayne directly. We talked before, but this stuff isn't going away. Okay? Don't be the big bad builder. Work with us. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I was not sworn in. Can I speak if I be sworn in on that?
Yeah, come up. Well, I guess.
Go right ahead,
If
Liz.
not, that's okay.
That's fine.
I wasn't planning on speaking, but somebody else was supposed to, another neighbor was supposed to be here and she didn't show.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that any statements you make before the board tonight will be the truth? If so, state I do.
I do. And my name is Cindy Thompson. I live at 4355 North Sheldon Road. I understand what his end goal is to get the advertising out there because it's been sitting there, I believe, for 4 years. Nothing has, he put roads in, but nothing has been done prior to here recently where he's building, I think, 2 spec homes. And he's just now put up for sale signs on a couple of the lots. If you Google Arrowhead Point in Churubusco, you can find Wayne TV Link announcing the minutes of the 2021 and the 2022 meetings. You don't see anything on the social media advertising for these lots. But now he wants to put up these signs. I'm not sure how much these signs are going to do. He needs to go out to social media first. That's where his real advertisement is. I personally, I don't want the traffic. I've seen an increase in it. I've lived in this addition for 30 years. I would prefer not to see it. Floodlights, absolutely not. I know one of the neighbors that lives right on the end there, they're not able to be here. They all have the norovirus. She sent in a letter. Mm-hmm. So I know for a fact they don't want to look at it. You know, it's part of their everyday landscape now. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anybody else? Petitioner, would you like to answer any of the questions that were brought up?
Forgive me, guys, if I forget. So if you can just shout out if I don't answer your question. We did have a chance to talk. Brent had a chance to talk to her this afternoon. I had a chance to look at hers. Most of her concern was, hey, can you make sure the sign's on our side? It's not. She was worried about the view, 100%. Go on NatureWorks, 100%. Totally get that. That's why we have it on the other side. Try to be very particular. Let's make sure it looks good. It's visually appealing. All of that. I believe in the Whitley County sign thing, it says we can have an off-site sign, so that's what we're requesting. Trying to abide by the signs. We are, we do have an open door policy. If anybody has any concerns about any of our stuff that we're doing, Wayne, I can give my phone number out too, but Wayne takes the calls, right? We're trying to do everything we can to be very, truthful, accommodating. I believe we didn't, to your point about the social media, I don't believe we had permission to sell lots until recently. So we held off on saying lots available because they were not available. And so not to cause any confusion, any phone calls that we had up to this point was, yes, here's some ideas, but we are not ready yet. These signs are that first step. We are a small but mighty team at Vision Woodworks. And so in that, I should say at least our admin team, right? And so social media is coming. It's obviously our website's been up, all of that stuff. My sister-in-law, right, is our social media person, and she's going to knock it out of the park. But that, to your point, correct, social media a little behind, 100%. But that is our intent, is alongside the signs, the social media. We were on the Turtle Days parade. We were at Turtle Days, Arrowhead Ridge. So our signage has been out. Our promotional material has been out as well. But I'm happy to answer any other questions. Again, trying to be very honest and forthcoming with all of this. Did I answer everybody's questions as best I could? I'm happy to.
What about the multi-story home?
Excuse me, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the public record.
I can answer it afterwards if you're good with that too. I'm happy to do that.
I just have a question on the multi-story home.
Please come to the podium and ask the question. And were you sworn in, sir? You will need to be sworn in. When I asked that question at the very beginning, you need to stand up if you have any inkling. We are trying to move this along.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that any statements you make before the board tonight will be the truth? If so, state I do. Be sure to state your name and address.
Yeah. Hi, I'm John Gatton. I'm from
4150 North Sheldon Road. My question is, when the deal was made on the homes, it was stated that they were going to be ranch homes, and now we're not doing that. So.
Yeah, so that's not our intent that was ever the case. You're correct. So our covenant does say single story 2,000, 2-story 2,400. That is what the covenant is that we have signed.
Okay, so that's wasn't on the back side over there, looking into these folks' backyard. I'm new to the area, but understanding from all of these folks here on the back side, looking into these folks' backyard, it was stated to me that the 2-story level homes were not to be behind some of these folks, like that gentleman right there. That wasn't supposed to be on that side of the. I don't have a drawing of it right now, but the drawing I seen was multi-level homes were supposed to be on the other side. So I just have that question, because it wasn't supposed to be drawn out that way in the stuff that I looked at. So, and then talking to my new neighbors, they're quite disappointed in that. So the plan got changed, and that was the only question I had.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
So that conversation probably predated me. We're going to abide by whatever the ruling has been. So if back in 2021 it was written out as that way, that's the way we'll have to follow it unless we require a variance, and we'll obviously rehash that. If that is the case and we need to come back and say, hey, we need to change it, I'll see you guys back here in a couple months, right? But to that, I just want to answer your question. That is not, when I spoke to Wayne, because that got brought up about a month ago, and I said, hey Wayne, is that the case? And he says that is not the impression that I believe I gave. But again, I know that that'll be digressive from the point. We will address that as best we can. Again, with the intent of I'm trying to keep things as very honest as possible. We're not trying to hide. We're not going to pull a quick one on you guys. I promise you, Wayne is a very good man. I know he's my father-in-law, but I trust him very much so, and I don't have to say that, but I know he's family. But I do trust him that we will get this right.
All right.
For what it's worth, the original subdivision approval did discuss having no 2 stories on what was then lots 1 through 8. I would have to actually go through the minutes to find the absolute in discussion, but I believe it was left open-ended. However, it was discussed.
Okay.
It's not exactly an answer, but it was discussed.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm happy to discuss that further if we need to come back and talk about it. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you much. Got a little bit off track there, but okay. Anybody else? Seeing nobody, we will close the public discussion or the public hearing and move it back to the board for discussion and or a motion.
Nathan, really quick, when auction companies want to direct traffic to one of their sites and they use, I'll call them election size signs, that's perfectly acceptable, right? Doesn't fall in it. But then when they do the actual sign for the auction, it's on that property, because otherwise I would think we'd be getting requests all the time.
Right. The sign that's on the property would either fall under essentially the construction sign or real estate sign. They're similar. They're both on premises signs. What you're suggesting, the little garage sale size signs, 18 by 24, election, any of those, by the letter of the code are not allowed. However, because of the sign, they generally are treated as incidental signs and they generally are removed. So I can't say that they're permitted. However, we don't take enforcement action because we treat them essentially as incidental signs.
Okay.
But
thank you.
So are these signs that they propose temporary signs by your plan office? Are these temporary signs?
Yes, because they would be subject to the standard of the 2-year requirement.
So these have to be removed after 2 years.
Or that would be additional.
So we don't have to make a condition. That doesn't have to be a condition. That's an existing rule.
Correct. Doesn't have to be.
It's 2 years or 80% of
Which-
the lots or units have been sold, whichever
Correct.
happens first.
Correct.
So what about the sign? I mean, the gentleman asked if it is directing the people to where the construction site is, or is it just an advertisement? Is that a concern?
The concern is that it is related to it is not on the site that it is related to. So whether it's directional or advertising is getting into a content question that you would be better not to dive into. But what it is related to is not on the property that it is to be cited. What I'm getting at is you can regulate on-premise and off-premise signage. However, when you start getting into the content of what that sign says, whether it be directional or more advertising, that gets into an area of speech that would be best left untouched.
I agree.
Thank
And
you, Liz.
I did review the cases that were provided, and I think they're distinguishable, and they were under an old statute that was applicable at the time. The variance statute has changed a few times. Your best direction is from the factors that Nathan listed in the staff report, and his analysis of those. Those are the factors that you have to consider.
Yeah, as was mentioned, related to the difficulty of the site would be the amount of frontage that they have. They do have frontage, but it's not necessarily great frontage. Is there an economic development component to this? Obviously, or else they wouldn't be doing it, but it is still related back to a physical constraint of the site, potentially.
But there is a spot where a sign could be put on the site.
Correct. There are at least 2 locations that signs could be placed, yes.
Thank you.
I think they have developed, this is my comment on it, I think they've developed the sign as a twofold sign. One, is somewhat directional, and that phase 1 building now, yes, it is also a marketing sign. So, but as has been stated, the traffic that runs up and down Anderson Road, down 550 East, down 205, to have those trucks, as was stated, going to the right place and not having them drop off in another spot, and that, which can cause even more of a headache than that. So, because they're going to use state roads to get to where they need to go and take the shortest way there. That's the way drivers are. So, but do they use signs, or do they use something handheld before they leave the office? It's a personal preference on that driver. I understand most people drive with a handheld device now and follow their GPS. I'm probably one of the minority that does not. I understand. So,
I was just poked here. I believe in the written staff report that you guys received, not what I have in my packet, I mentioned the idea of a precedent potentially being set in the practical difficulty section. Did I say that?
No, I did not say that.
Okay. You may want to also weigh that in your practical difficulty discussion. Any other subdivisions in the county that may also have less desirable road frontage, and any other future requests for off-site signage as well. So keep that in mind if you approve this tonight. While every case is unique, you might be setting a establishing findings that could be used as precedent for other future cases. We don't have very many subdivisions in the county right now, but we could in the future. And my apologies if that wasn't in the written staff report.
Any other discussion, board? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
This might be just a variance without any conditions, so do we need a motion?
It would make things simpler if you did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Motion for or against, or with conditions.
We can't make a motion against, right? We have to make a motion in favor and then vote.
Positive.
No. Your options would be to motion to approve, approve with conditions, or a motion to deny. A deny is an action, so you can do that. Or you could also continue if you desire. That is an option as well.
I'll make a motion to deny this petition.
I'll second.
There has been a motion put forth to deny the petition, seconded by Kelly. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? And anybody abstain?
I abstain. I have family members involved.
Okay. So it is 2-2 tie.
So at this point, you can request another motion. Probably with some conditions would be my suggestion, since the vote was 2-2. See if conditions would address any issues that you guys see.
Board, what is your pleasure?
I have no conditions to offer.
So, we can continue it, can we not?
You can continue it. Liz, do you have any suggestions on what they might do with a continuance? For example, what would it be accomplished in the next month?
Well, Jack, you have a conflict, right? I mean, other than fighting.
I do, I have a family member that.
I just wanted to make sure. I mean, if we could find, I guess, a proxy for Jack and continue the public hearing.
Yeah, the Plan Commission could appoint an alternate for
But the
Jack.
problem is that the alternate's not been here for the public hearing part, so it'd have to.
The public hearing would be reopened at that point
Right.
too.
Allow them 1 year to put the signs up if you don't have them up at all.
I think they use.
Huh?
I think they use their own property to put them up.
If anybody, are there any other? I mean, does anybody else have any conditions they would be okay with if that is discussed? That might help.
I think it's been stated up here from the opposition or those who voted against, they want signs on their property, not on someone else's property. If the petitioner.
Other than getting a alternate, I don't know if there's much else that can be done.
At the January meeting, we'll discuss with the Plan Commission for appointing an alternate for actually both Joe and Jack, since you're both Plan Commission's appointment, just so we have an alternate in our pocket.
So we still need a motion on a continuance, or?
Yes, please.
So. Okay. Motion to continue until the next meeting.
So move.
Second.
Danny and Doug, motions. And second, to continue to the January meeting. All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, 4-1. Motion passes to continue to the January meeting. Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to our next item. (25) W Special Exception 16. Scott and Deborah Trout. Special exception for a secondary dwelling. The petitioner, owner of the subject property, is requesting a special exception approval for a secondary dwelling unit on the property located at 9055 West State Road 14 in Section 6 of Cleveland Township. The property is currently improved with a house and outbuildings. The current zoning is AG agricultural. Property area is 8.11 acres. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going to these slides. As you said, this is 9055 West State Road 14, zoned AG agricultural, just southwest of Palmer. Requests a special exception for a secondary dwelling unit. Clarification from the written staff report. I believe in there it said that an additional dwelling would be on the property. That's been clarified. They would remodel an existing barn with living quarters. But otherwise the details would be the same use by relatives, and long-term the living area would be converted back to storage space as it is now. Reference aerial, so highlighted in blue is the subject property, so the existing dwelling, and then I believe this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the outbuilding that would be remodeled with living quarters. And then State Road 14's running east-west through the middle of the aerial photography there. Pretty straightforward. So staff's suggested conditions are typical, granted as presented, health department compliance for primarily septic and to a lesser degree well, as mentioned before. And then the third standard condition that this would not be used as an income producing rental unit. Any questions for me?
I want to add one more little point to that. If it were to be remodeled back to storage, they do have the option of possibly splitting the property. So that was another option that they have at the end of. Yep.
All right. So, okay, if there's no other questions of Nathan and that, we'll go ahead, petitioner, you would come forth and state what it is you want to do with your special exception.
My name is Scott Trout. Live at 9055 West State Road 14, South Whitley. We just had a rude awakening. It's $96,000 a year for a nursing home, and I can remodel this for probably less than that. So this will eventually be my dwelling, and we want to put new well and septic in. I want to upgrade the electrical box to 200 amp. It's got 100 amp in it. We're going to separate it because it is part of the property right now, so it's still connected to the house. That will be separated. There will be the only difference that will be most people will see will be that there will be a driveway going up to the back part of the garage.
All right. Any other questions of the petitioner? Thank you. You may have a seat. So, may we take a short recess at this time? Until Doug returns, or
do you want to take an official recess or just talk amongst yourselves for a few minutes?
Yeah.
For a second. He's coming right now.
Yeah. I don't want to leave him out.
Jack's
So.
gonna lead us in a Christmas carol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say we can
Jingle
sing.
bells.
There you go. Look at that, it worked, didn't it?
Feel better?
Thank you.
Did we actually formally open the public hearing?
No, we have not
Okay.
as of yet. So, as stated, the petitioner, there was a surprise with what the nursing home would cost, so he can remodel this easier than he can pay for the nursing home. So, and has all intentions of making all the upgrades in it. So, the only thing what you'll notice is a new driveway there. So, as of now, we will open the public hearing for those to speak for or against at this time, or that have questions. All right. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for discussion and whatever you would like to move on it.
I move we approve petition 25 WSE 16 filed by Scott and Deborah Trout with the 3 suggested conditions that staff has.
I'd second that.
We have a motion by Danny, seconded by Jack to approve 25 WSE 16 with the conditions stated by staff, which are pretty standard conditions. Special exception is granted as presented. Compliance with recommendations of the health department. In addition to the requirements in the zoning code definition of secondary dwelling, the dwelling shall not be used as an income producing rental unit. Okay. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? The motion passes with the conditions unanimously. Thank you very much. You have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Okay, on to our next item. 25W Special Exception 17. Joe and Sarah Lopez. Special exemption or exception for a secondary dwelling unit. The petitioner, owner of the subject property, is requesting a special exception approval for a secondary dwelling unit on the property located at 5300 North, 250 West, in Section 7 of Thorn Creek Township. The property is currently improved with a house and outbuildings. Staff, your report, please.
Thank you. So going to the slides. This is at 5300 North, 250 West. It is zoned AGP agricultural production. We don't see requests on AGP too frequently, especially for secondary dwelling units. Overall acreage of the parcel is 95 acres, give or take. What the petitioner is looking to do is construct a pole barn with living quarters. The existing home would be used by the petitioner's children. Long term, the living area either be converted to storage space, being a pole barn, or the property would be split to have the one dwelling per parcel. If doing this property split, AGP regulations would apply, so we would have to address that. It may trigger the need for rezoning at that point, but we'll see what the actual parcel size, configuration, and other standards come into play at that point. Tonight, pretty straightforward secondary dwelling unit. It's just AGP. So highlighted in blue is the subject property, and back there on the eastern, southeastern, central eastern portion is the existing dwelling, the existing farm. Site plan as proposed, existing dwelling is here. Proposed pole barn with living quarters would be partway up the driveway. So again, standard conditions from staff for a pretty straightforward secondary dwelling unit. The only thing really different with this one is it does have a fairly long driveway, so the appearance of being even a secondary dwelling unit is somewhat diminished as compared to, say, the last case where it would have a second driveway, for example. Any questions for me?
Seeing none, thank you, Nathan. Petitioner, would you please come forward, state your name and address, and tell us what it is that you would like to do?
Good evening. My name is Joe Lopez. I live at 5300 North, 250 West, Columbia City. It's pretty straightforward. We'd like to build a pole barn with attached living space, and just through this succession, our children are going to take over, and hopefully we live happily ever after.
Okay, so board, any questions of the petitioner? Seeing none, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
May sit down. At this time, we will open the public hearing for anybody to speak for or against this special exception. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for discussion and or a motion.
I move we approve 25 WSE 17 special exception for Joe and Sarah Lopez for a secondary dwelling unit on their property in Thorn Creek Township with the suggested conditions 1 through 3 as listed.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Doug, to approve with the conditions stated by staff. Standard conditions, special exception is granted as presented. Compliance with the recommendations of the health department. Number 3, in addition to the requirements in the zoning code definition of the secondary dwelling unit, the dwelling shall not be used as an income-bearing rental unit. So, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? It passes unanimously. Joe, you may stick around or you may go ahead and head home.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
should we have a recess for anyone else?
Yes, that is a capital item. So we will take a 5-minute recess.
You don't need to
Maybe.
go anywhere.
Let's make it 8 real quick. So.
We can do 4 minutes.
Okay.
All right, we are ready. We will call the meeting back to order and move on to our next piece of business, which is 25 WSE 18. Jason and Jennifer Esterline, a special exception renewal for processing of agricultural products not produced on site. The petitioner, owner of the subject property at 8324 West, State Road 14 in Cleveland Township, is requesting reapproval of a special exception originally approved in 2022 as 22 WSE 7 with a condition for a 3-year operational time period. Generally, that special exception was for the processing of agricultural products not produced on site to allow for operation of a brewing operation, which included an accessory tap room and associated outdoor seating. The current zoning of the property is BC Village Commercial. The property area is 3.26 acres. Staff, your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you said, this is 8324 West State Road 14 on the opposite side of Collimer from our previous case. Zoned VC Village Commercial, light commercial would be another term for it, but it is titled Village Commercial. 3.26 acres. The request is to reapprove the special exception, as you mentioned, for processing of agricultural products not produced on site. That was actually the term in AG when it was originally approved. Under VC, it's just simply processing of agricultural products or commercial processing of agricultural products. Slight difference in terminology, but still effectively the same. This condition was one of several that was in the original special exception approval back from 2022. I have that list both in the written staff report and on the next slide. Just a quick summary of where we have come from. This was originally approved in 2022 to permit the brewery operation, which had been operating prior to that, basically as a homebrew operation, which we allow for, and importantly, an accessory tap room and seating. The accessory tap room and that associated effects were pretty much the bulk of the discussion back in 2022 and were the focus of most of the conditions that were adopted. In 2024, last year, the petitioner came forth to amend the special exception to address several different issues that had arisen because of changes in size of the tap room, some other issues, and at the time they were also going to renew this special exception from 2022 as well. However, in the end, the overall request was denied. The board, in summary, the board felt like what was being done was just simply beyond what could be considered under the AG zoning. To address that, the petitioner rezoned the property in 2024 to the light business, the village commercial, to permit the essentially restaurant that the tap room had become. Would also allow for the bed and breakfast to be a permitted use, to have an Airbnb on the property. The brewery would still be a special exception under BC as it was under AG. So that condition of approval was not superseded by the change in zoning. It still continued forward because it was still a special exception. Other special exceptions under BC that could come into play would be a banquet hall / event center, and then in BC, single family residential is also a special exception. Right now, because they have the bed and breakfast, their residence is inherent in a bed and breakfast, so it is actually a permitted use. Kind of a quirk of residential uses under the zoning code there, that one is a special exception and one is a permitted use. As I said, the next slide, this is the list of conditions of approval from the 2022 special exception. 1 and 2 are pretty standard. Number 3 was related specifically to the tap room, not to exceed an area of 416 square feet, which, as I said, did expand and was part of the requested amendment in 2024. That no longer applies. The change in zoning does supersede that condition. The number and design of parking spaces would comply with parking code. NDOT permit would be obtained. NDOT permit has been obtained. Number and design of parking spaces. The number does comply with code, actually, by my calculation, currently exceeds the code. The change in zoning, I will say, becoming a commercial district as opposed to agricultural, parking does need to be paved in commercial districts. However, because this was already existing prior to the change in zoning, it's our policy, unless we have an approval or some other reason to change to trigger the need for paving, we don't pursue that as an enforcement action. So if there was a development plan involved with the change in zoning, for example, that would have caused the need for paving. The 9th special exception could also be a case for and a trigger for paving under the parking code. I'll leave that up to you to determine whether that's related to the case at hand or not. The next condition from 2022 was that the noise from this special exception would not exceed 50 decibels as measured at adjacent residences. That was intended to apply both to the tap room and to the brewery operation itself. Again, in case there was equipment that might be noisy or something like that. But as I recall, much of the discussion was more about the tap room and outdoor seating being the source of the noise as opposed to, say, brewing equipment. Any requirements of health department for the septic system, food operation, etc. would be met. I believe the septic system is in good standing. Food operations and food permits are also, it's my understanding, are in good standing. The brewing operation itself, I'm not sure what health department inspections have to be done for it as opposed to the restaurant. But again, I trust that the health department has been inspecting it as they require. Hours of operation, this was very specific for the tap room, would be those hours. Again, since this tap room grew to be a permitted restaurant, those conditions are now superseded as well. Freestanding signage will be limited to one non-illuminated sign of not more than 6 square feet in area per face, and I believe that is the size of sign that is on the site, so that has been complied with. And then the last two, I believe, may be worth more discussion. As growth occurs, an alternate location for the use should be identified, and then the special exception would be in effect for 3 years from the date of approval unless reapproved, and that's what's triggering tonight's. And I say it's worth perhaps a little bit more discussion, especially that last one, whether you feel like if you do approve it with conditions, whether you feel that another time period would be necessary, or whether this is established and no time period is necessary, or if you don't feel like this is appropriate, that would be, of course, your other option as well. So, going through some reference materials, aerial view here from 2024 showing the petitioner's property as well as the surrounding properties. You do have residences on 3 adjacent sides plus one farther to the southwest. Closer view here. This is from spring of 2024. This, which is actually from Google Earth, is from November of 2024. not much difference occurring for reference. Aerial oblique, also from November of 2024, you can see that there is actually striping placed on the gravel. And based upon that, I believe there are 30 spaces. There are marked approximately 25 spaces, and there is additional room for the other 5 spaces. And Google Street View was not able to obtain my own photos because State Route 14 is not exactly a road I prefer to stop on myself. But this is a nice view of the site. This was taken in August of this year, so you can see recently. And then I believe there is also a dumpster location up here in this front left corner as well. Because I know it's a topic of discussion and I put a lot of words to it in the written staff report. However, tonight's special exception is about the brewing operation. We do have additional uses that are on the property, so just wanted to hit on each one of those quickly. The food and, as I mentioned, the consumption of food and beverage on the site falls into a permitted restaurant use. That's based upon our discussions at the last meeting. That restaurant basically offers food to customers on demand, on site. It's cooked and bought on site, and then whether it's taken away or eaten on site, that's difference between like a drive-through or a sit-down restaurant, for example. But importantly, it's on demand from a menu, or you could offer a buffet with regular operating hours. Typically prepared on site by employees, but other types of food service operations, for example, a commissary, mobile kitchen, catering, can occasionally fall into this definition if those other aspects are fulfilled, the regular operating hours and so on. So the restaurant use there is that's the working definition that we've worked with. To the degree that consumption of beverages is primarily alcoholic beverages on site instead of food, that may be considered a bar, which would require special exception approval. Bar and nightclub is a special exception under Village Commercial. However, that distinction of what constitutes a food serving bar versus a liquor serving restaurant is not explicitly defined. I do have some discussion. The last item under other business tonight is discussion about that definition. So if you want to discuss that aside from this case, that could be appropriate. If it's appropriate as part of this discussion, I'll let you guys figure that out as what may be natural. Petitioner does acknowledge that the restaurant hosts private events. This could be classified as an event center or banquet hall, special exception. Again, we had some discussion last month. Event centers sometimes have restaurants, and restaurants and some bars often do hold private events, closed door events. So the distinction is not necessarily perfectly clear. It's further muddled if you start picking at very specific components of each use. So rather than considering a restaurant as a whole, saying that they have a bar, they have a back room that's for events, they have a front waiting room that's a non-seating area, but it's for additional patronage, so maybe that counts towards the seating area and so on, as opposed to looking at it in its entirety. So depending on how fine-grained you get, may start to determine whether something is a restaurant with events, with back room, whether it's an event center with restaurant, and so on. However, staff's opinion at this point, based again primarily on last month's discussion, Because this restaurant is open to the general public more frequently than it's closed for private events, does have regular open hours, has a regular menu, I feel that this is a restaurant that has events rather than an event center. You can overrule me, that is your authority, but that's what I'm working with right now. The Airbnb and single family residence together, I already mentioned this, constitute a bed and breakfast, which is permitted use. The residence by itself would be a special exception in BC. If it was by itself, right now it'd be legal non-conforming, so that would be a component of this as well. And finally, I know the petitioner has livestock that they raise. They also grow crops on the property. Those are not listed uses in village commercial, but under state law, they are protected agricultural activities, and they are legal non-conforming uses as well under the local zoning code. So those are protected uses. So again, additional pieces that are happening on the property just so that we put it out there, because I knew that we would be discussing it at least in some fashion. Again, the special exception though is for processing of agricultural products, which would be the brewing operation specifically. And to that end, I have these basic suggestion conditions, and number 8 is kind of a catch-all of, I do feel that there probably will be additional conditions added and these potentially modified as we go through it. 1 and 2 are pretty standard. Number 3 is also standard, but stems from the existing dumpster out by the right-of-way. Typically, we do request those to be enclosed with an opaque screen or otherwise screened from view from neighboring properties and rights-of-way. So if they're behind a building, for example, that could also be qualified, but where it is, it's our past practice to have it be enclosed. Number 4 is a carryover from before. Number 5 is a simplified version of what we had before. Number 6, hours of operation of the brewing be limited to hours outside of the restaurant's operating hours. That is intended to separate the two operations. Essentially, you have employees on site for brewing and then potentially employees and customers on site for the restaurant and other activities going on. Maximizes the availability of parking, maximizes the amount of space available for customers, for example. However, at this point, because the number of employees the petitioner has in the brewing operation is very minimal, this may be a moot point. Basically, the same employees work in both operations all at once. The petitioners basically are the employees. So if you want to entertain that condition, that's where I was coming from to include it. If not, again, it may be a moot point. Number 7, maintain the 8-foot privacy fence that was previously installed along the west property line. That's just a statement for maintenance of that. And as I mentioned, I feel that there probably is opportunity for further conditions as we go through this discussion. So that is what I hope is a summary of a lot of words in this written staff report. Any questions for me at this point?
Any questions, board? Okay, thank you, Nathan. So at this time, would the petitioner and or their representative please come to the podium, state your name and address, and what it is you wish to do with your special exception.
Hi, board. My name is Jackson Beck. I'm an attorney for the petitioners. My address is 52857 County Road 21, Bristol, Indiana. I guess in the interest of time, I'll just turn it over to Jason to answer any questions that you may have and for him to present on the brewing operation side of things. He'll be your best resource. Then I'll come back and speak.
Jason Esterline, 8324 West State Road 14, South Whitley. Just coming to re-up the agriculture processing of agricultural products not produced on site. We, in 2024, we were averaging about 7 barrels of beer, finished beer, per month. That is roughly translates to 217 gallons or 14 kegs. That's what we were doing about a month. For the year, we ended up doing 2,604 gallons. 2025, we were down to 5.5 barrels a month. Roughly translates to 170 gallons or 11 kegs. And we only did, I believe, 2,040 gallons for the year. So our production went down. Our distribution for 2025 was literally 2 3/4 barrels. So that was what we were selling off-site to restaurants or whatever. That translates to 85.25 gallons. Our size has not increased. I would like for the brewing production to increase, but as of right now, there's no need for it. We have the room inside there to do more production, but right now we don't have the need for it. But everything else has been going like it has been with the brewing production. So, any questions?
Jay, I think I think it was in Nathan's original report from 2022. He noted that much of the beer you produce there would be for off-site consumption off the property. What is the number and amount compared to on-site versus off-site?
Well, off-site consumption would be roughly 10% of what we do. I think that might have been a mistake because obviously being a tap room, you want most of your product going through your tap room and not out your door because your money's made in the tap room. That might have been mistakenly stated back then. And I know back in 2022, all of this was a rough estimate because we did not know where it was going to go. I think we predicted doing like 5 to 6 barrels a month. Like I say, we're right in that realm, but I'd love to see it more. We have the room for it, but we don't have the need for it right now. There's a demand.
And then secondly, on the initial request back in 2022, which was before my time on the BZA, I know there were 9 suggested conditions, and I realize that the village commercial rezoning changed that. But prior to that rezone, were all those conditions followed as they were written?
As far as I'm aware, they were, yes.
So you never operated outside of the requested hours?
Not for general business, no.
Never had private events outside the approved hours?
Not for brewing, no. I mean, we would have
right,
Christmas
but the conditions were for the entire and
for the private events like a Christmas party. Mm-hmm. Yes, we people came in.
But the tap room alcohol was served then, correct?
Yes.
There was no specification on that whether it was a public or a private event, was it? It was just hours of operation of the tap room, correct?
Right. You've got it there in writing before you, so as it was written.
Okay. Any other questions? So, sir?
Yeah. So I appreciate the staff's report. They went into good detail. And I would sort of piggyback on them, highlighting that this petition is only for special use related to the processing of off-site agricultural products. My understanding of the current operations is that some of the products are produced on site, some aren't. They can't produce all the inputs to the brewing operation. If they could, they wouldn't have to get a special exception at all. So really, we're looking at impacts related specifically to the inputs that they get offsite and process, and those impacts that they have as it relates to the zoning ordinance. For example, what's the impact of processing offsite agricultural products? Does it create dangerous, injurious, or noxious conditions on the property? Does it interfere with the harmonious relationship with the property and the adjacent zoning and structures? Is it consistent with the visual impression and environment of the area? And does the additional brewing processing of the agricultural products create issues with vehicular access, parking, or traffic congestion? As Jason went through, the brewing operation is relatively small. It's not a Anheuser-Busch or anything like that. The grain produced or consumed, which is one of the offsite inputs, the primary offsite input, is 400 to 800 pounds a month, which requires one delivery once a month via a pickup truck. So it's up to the board to assess the impact of that one delivery on the traffic congestion and other related impacts. Some other inputs are the 50 pounds of hops, which I don't know if they just order that through FedEx, standard commercial carriers, and yeast, which a month's consumption is about 2 gallons. Is that correct? So a milk jug worth of yeast or so, 2 of them. I think it's important that the board consider those specific impacts. These other impacts are all part of the permitted uses. I understand you may have questions in the future about whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a bar, whether it's an event center. As it stands now, they're all in complete compliance with their current zoning. They've received no notice of violation. If the staff zoning administrator were to find or suggest or want to do an inspection to assess whether they are in fact in violation of the zoning ordinance, he would issue a notice. We then have a hearing on the matter. That's set out in the ordinance, and that's part of their procedural due process rights under the law, under the ordinance, under the statutes, under the Constitution. So again, I'll reiterate what we're talking about is a special use exception for the brewing operations and the processing specifically of offsite materials, being 400 to 800 pounds of grain, 50 pounds of hops, 2 gallons of yeast a month. When considering your limitations and conditions on the special use exception, they should similarly be tailored to mitigate the impacts of the special use, requiring the approval. They went through various approvals already, went through the first special use exception. They went through the second one, which was denied, perhaps properly so because of the growth. You don't often want to deal with complex approvals via a special use. So they went through a proper rezoning approval process. So as far as the conditions go, those that you think would mitigate the impacts of the deliveries, the processing, the grain is ground, it's boiled, it may produce an odor. All the operations are done inside the building. So the expected impact, as outlined in the staff report, is minimal. And I think that summarizes a lot of the legal points I wanted to make. If you're curious about definitions, one definition you have in your zoning ordinance is accessory use, clearly incidental and customary to the primary use, subordinate to the primary use, subordinate in area, use, and extent, and contributes to customer experience. I think all of the concerns you may have about the scope of the events, bars, they have trivia night. Is that an event? Things like that. So I guess sort of a conclusion to my initial proposal is if you were to deny the special exception, you'd essentially be holding that because of the processing and production of 5 to 6 barrels per month, the processing of this offsite grain, that would create a dangerous, noxious, or injurious condition. It would create disharmony with the surroundings, which is all zoned Ag 1, and processing of agricultural products, whether off-site or on-site. I think it's fair to say it's relatively in the same characteristic of the area. It's all done inside. You don't see it. It's stored inside. The delivery, again, once a month. So I guess we'll leave the rest up to you. We're happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the operations related to the specific special use. Thank you for your time.
Board, any questions? Seeing none, thank you. So, at this time, we'll open the public hearing for those to speak for or against or that have questions.
Mr. Chair, before anybody comes up to the podium, or as they come up to the podium, I do want to draw your attention to a couple different comment letters that we received, which were either in your packet or there were a couple that were received today at least. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at those. I do want to point out one concern that was reiterated at least in two of the letters, and that was related to the criteria that the petitioner's attorney just mentioned, the waste matter. There was concern about waste matter, effluent perhaps, dump water. I don't know exactly what to call it, but they were concerned about wastewater essentially being dumped on the property as part of the brewing operation. So because it was mentioned a couple times, I draw it to your attention, and again, because it relates directly to one of the criteria, that's why I bring it up. Otherwise, hopefully you've had a chance to digest that.
Would that be a health department issue, or would that be an IDM issue?
I don't know exactly what it is, but potentially it could be any of those. It could be absolutely not an issue as well.
Can I address that? Yes, Jason, if you would like to come forward and address that question for us.
So the liquid in question is literally well water. In the process of brewing beer, you boil your wort down is what they call it. You boil it, and then when you're at the end of your boil, you need to cool it off as quick as possible. To do that, you run it through a heat exchanger. The heat exchanger takes, it's like a radiator. It takes the wort through it, and there's also water hooked up to it. And that's what cools it down real quick. We literally go from 210 degrees to 75 degrees in one pass. What I know what he's talking about, that is literally just water. I used to have it going into the horse tank to fill the horse tank when we were doing it. Horse tank's been moved, so it just runs out onto the ground. If that is an issue that it needs to go into the holding tank, so be it. I didn't do it because I didn't want to fill the holding tank up with 100 gallons of water every time and have it pumped out 2 weeks later. So that is what that was.
Thank you. So, okay. So now we will open the public hearing, as I said, for anybody to speak for or against, or who has questions.
Good evening. I'm Matthew Staten, 703 North Hillcrest Drive in South Whitley. Just here to say something about what this local third place means to my wife and I. Third place being the place that's not your home, and it's not work. It's another place to just go pull away from the hustle and bustle and be human for a little bit. Some of our favorite things to do are have our grandson there, walk in the grass, go back where the goats are. They got a sign that has the goats' names and the characteristics, and so you can match which goat is which goat is which. I have a soft spot for goats. We raised goats and chickens when I was a kid, and I just love their individual, unique personalities. My grandson loves, he's just 2. I know that it's probably shocking that I have a grandson, but in fact, we do. But he loves to run around the grass, throw the bean bags for the cornhole. He's terrible. He laughs at the turkey that ruffles its feathers. And when we go inside and they've got the local music, my wife and I love to go to blues concerts, tickets are expensive, venues are large, and this is nothing like that. This is local guys picking and grinning. And our grandson is obsessed with guitar. He has a toy guitar. When he sees the musicians playing with the full size, he says, big tar, because he calls guitar tar. And then when they quit, he goes, more tar, more tar. But my wife drags me there every weekend. I don't put up too much of a fight. We've never been turned away because there was something private going on or something like that. Every time we're there, 100% of the time, food is a part of the thing, and the food it's like elevated. To me, it's like Anthony Bourdain or Gordon Ramsay influenced. Maybe not quite as good, but it may be better. But it's certainly influenced. And so the way we describe it to our friends is it's two guys that brew beer in a pole barn, and one of them has a wife, and she's like a chef. The alternative for us is a couple weeks ago, we were at a tap room about a half hour north. They had some food. It was nachos. They put room temperature chips on a plate, and they dumped some room temperature nacho cheese, like glop on it. It was okay. It wasn't great. So when you have a very small kitchen staff that has like a farm to fork ethos, where they're growing some of their own hops, or they're locally sourcing the food with that farm to fork ethos in that restaurant area, and it's just really good. It's delicious. That's a benefit to the other businesses, to the people that are involved in that, and it's a fun part of the whole experience. To me, there's no way you could have, with that limited kitchen staff, pretty much one, and the hours, there's just no way one person could possibly like inventory and do all of that. So you'd have to take a break once in a while. And so to me, the food truck is a really creative solution. It's always communicated on the Facebook page what's going to be there, so you can see what the menu is, when the kitchen's going to be open, when it's going to be closed. And if you like the baked potato truck, be there when it's there. You know, if you like the taco truck and so on. So what I want to say is, if this place isn't there, it's not the end of the world. We can go with our grandson to other places. He lives in Fort Wayne. We go see him in Fort Wayne, where we can hang out at a big box restaurant that supports a factory farm. We watch TV. We try not to spend too much time on the phone, but I'm the worst offender. And those options exist. That money, that tip, the taxes, they go someplace else. But when we're here, this is a local third place to us. That the money, the tips, the taxes, it supports them. It supports other local businesses that they're supporting, kind of like a force multiplier. So I look at it as like a win-win-win-win, that it's the local businesses and economy, it's the local environment from the farm to fork, it's the local musicians, and it's the customers, which is my wife and myself and my grandson. So I was watching a previous video and of the board, and just saw the stance that they have taken at times to other local businesses to say, we want to help you. How do we make this happen? We want to support this. And I love that. I love that our local businesses are supported by this board and by the local community. And I'm just here to speak in support of taking that exact same stance with this one. We love this third place, and so I wanted to say that. Thank you.
I'm just curious, I'm going off script a little bit. What do you consider a factory farm?
I don't have a specific definition, but what I would say is, so we have friends that their family has depended on farming. They might have a few hundred acres or a fairly large farm, but the farm is in their family. Like, they take care of it. They take care of the equipment. They take care of the stuff. The land is in their name. It's a family history. To me, the factory farm is when you're talking about big box. It's the big box ethos. It's the big box way of doing it, where you've got big equipment, people that they don't care about the local place so much. It's just they're there to get as much as they can out of it and to sell it. And it's not really like taking pride in like a small scale for the local community, but it's like I have some deep training in other areas and zero training in that area. So that's the best I could do.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening. I'm Paul Scheffler, 4680 West, 500 North, Columbia City. I've been up here before, talked to you guys. The topic tonight is really turning agricultural products into beer, which is, I'm not going to talk about that so much. I'm not a brewer like these guys, but without that product, things that are important to me at e-brewing wouldn't be there. You're not going to be able to have the tap room and that business at that location without beer. So I think it's germane to point out again, and I've said this in the past, the economic impact of the business. It's not just the taxes that are coming in from the revenue for the wages and the salary and the earnings and the sales that they're doing out there. But it's that ripple effect of having a small business in this community with their method of getting meat from Stan in downtown South Whitley, Filler's Honey, Avery's Bravery Branding for marketing and merchandise to sale. These are the things that affect all of us because it just ripples out in a small community like this, and it affects so many others in this small community. It's like Matthew was saying, it's not just us that like to go out to the tap room and have a beer on Friday nights. There's many other effects that this one business is having in the community. Another main point is probably I would call it a community hub that's been created out there. I've used this example before. It was probably at their first anniversary party, I think. They'd been there a year. I ran into an individual that I hadn't seen since high school, from up here at the old Columbia City High School. That place created a connection, and it's not just that connection, it's happened many times over. They've created a unique experience. It's the first farmhouse brewery in Indiana. It's the first brewery since Prohibition in Whitley County. That was the old Rolfer Brewery down here across from Bluebell. And my wife's the great-granddaughter of the Rolfers who had that brewery in town. So we've been involved with breweries for a long time in this community, and I think that it creates a unique destination that does draw in, and again, speaking to the economic impact, you're drawing in people that come here and spend money. It's not just the local people. You've got people from North Manchester, from Warsaw, Mishawaka, South Bend. You've got Indianapolis people, Fort Wayne people. So you're bringing more money into the community, and they're not just stopping there. They've got to get gas in and out of town. They might stay someplace. They might eat someplace else. So there is, again, that community hub has now rippled out too as a positive economic impact in the area. I just don't think that we can downplay the importance of having a community area like that, especially out in that corner of the county. I don't know, as Matthew said, where else we would go in that direction. My wife and I used to go to Fort Wayne quite often, and we're not doing that as often anymore because we can go out to South Whitley. So if you remove the processing of the agricultural products into beer, that's going to be a really harsh impact on their business. So if that business isn't going to exist, the ripple effect of how it affects everybody else through the products they purchase, through the community hub that they've created out there. I just believe all those are important factors. And I know I've said it before, but I wanted you to consider them again. Questions for me?
No, thank you. No. Anybody else?
Justin Eby, 211 North Schaefer Street in Milford. I don't live here, but I am one of the owners for eBrewing. And to kind of piggyback on what Paul was just saying, you got to take into account roughly 96% of all grain that we use is produced here in Indiana. It's grown on a single farm in Lebanon, Indiana. That is supporting a family that we try to keep as much in the state. We try to keep as much local as possible. Like he's saying, the ripple effect. I know that we don't produce a whole lot, but that little bit means something to somebody, no matter which end it's coming from. And it's everything that we're trying to do for the state of Indiana, for Whitley County, for everybody else that I think should be taken into account. Thanks.
Thank you. The floor is still open. Is there anybody else? right, seeing nobody, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion. So. I guess I don't have many comments. The only comment I would say is the rezoning to village commercial has taken a lot away from my past opposition. That it's village commercial now and it's doing what is allowed in village commercial. It's taken a lot away from my past opposition. My past opposition was basically on it's too small of an area. But since it's went to village commercial, I can't do much about that. I guess if there's no comments, we just want to talk about whether we want to add any conditions to the suggested staff report. I'll let it back to you, Joe. Sorry. No, that's fine. I want to hear you guys' opinion. So I remember when this came up, and one of the things as it listed as growth occurs in an alternative location for the use should be identified. I still believe that should be a primary goal. So I do believe it is in a too small of a location, but I also believe that it is a important part of South Whitley. But I understand that there are more complexities to this. So, but tonight we are here to hear a special exception for renewal of the processing of agricultural products on site. And that's what it says. So we will not bring up the other things. That's for another time. So.
Since we have to do something, we can't sit here all night. I will propose that we approve 25 WSC 18 with the suggested conditions.
1 through 8.
1 through 8.
Number 8 is not really a condition.
Okay.
Comment, so it'd be 1 through 7.
Okay, yes. Yeah, 1 through 7.
1 through 7. Okay. We have a motion.
I'd second that.
Jack seconds. So, okay, the suggestion conditions are as read. Number 1, special exception is granted for applicant and is non-transferable without board approval. Special exception is granted as presented. Any refuge container visible from the neighboring properties or public right-of-way is to be enclosed with an opaque screen. Noise from this special exception will not exceed 50 decibels as a measure at adjacent residences. Compliance with the requirements of the health department will be maintained. Hours of operation to be limited to hours outside of the restaurant operating hours. And maintain the 8-foot privacy fence along the west property line. So, anything else? So,
For clarification, hours of operations referring to the brewing operations specifically?
Assume.
That was on the old.
Well, no, this was a
Oh, okay.
clarification of what was on the old, because the old was specific to the tap room. And yes, that was my intent, but like I said, it may be a moot point because the number of employees is so limited that having an overlap is not consequential. But I defer to both petitioner and you to sort things out.
so, how many employees are you doing brewing right now? One. Okay.
Literally, if I can do it while we're open, it keeps us from having to do it during the week. And he literally would have to take a day off work. It doesn't work out real well sometimes. Most of the time.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second to approve with the conditions 1 through 7 as stated by staff. All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, the vote passes 4-1. So you are approved with the conditions as stated. So thank you very much. And now we will move on to other business, which is the discussion of restaurant banquet hall discussion continued from the last meeting.
So I only have this one slide, so hopefully this won't be too long of a discussion, but we'll see where it goes. So based upon last month's discussion, and I alluded to it early in the discussion earlier, this is staff's working definitions that I developed to try and distinguish between these three related but different uses. So first, restaurant, generally a structure in which the principal use is preparation, and on-site, I inserted that from what we had last month, on-site sale of food and beverages, as opposed to being a kitchen that takes the food off-site and sells it elsewhere. That doesn't necessarily make a restaurant. As part of that, the consumption of the food and beverage may be on-site, for example, seating area, sit-down area, or a drive-in, or it could be off-site, or there could be a combination of it, so like a pickup window or a drive-through. But the important thing is that the sale of what's being prepared would be on-site. Could be, as I mentioned, a commissary sort of situation where preparation is actually done off-site and food brought in. But again, the important thing is that it's being sold on-site and there's some combination of these things going on. Still some gray area in that, but hopefully that helps define things a little bit for better define things for restaurants. For bar, again, bar was not one that we really could nail down too much because you have restaurants all over the place selling liquor, essentially, and unless it is 100% alcohol, there's a lot of gradation there as to what is a bar versus restaurant and so on. And based upon what I could tell, restaurant's kind of a more broad term. Bars can be parts of restaurants and so on. But for zoning code land use component or definition, what I'm working with and suggesting that we discuss is that an area that it be defined as an area primarily devoted to the serving of alcoholic beverages, and I have that in parentheses for the question of can we have non-alcoholic bars. I think that might be a thing, coffee bars and so on, but does that overlap with cafes? So kind of a question there. In which the service of food is only incidental to the consumption of such beverages. So, to use the examples that were just described here, I think the tap room that was described elsewhere, where they serve pretty much some bags of nachos with some canned cheese on top, that's probably incidental to the alcohol. And their menu is probably reflective of that, as opposed to something that's more substantial of a menu, which starts to put it more into a restaurant category than simply a bar. There may be other ways we look at it, as we looked at last time, having actual percentages of sales and stuff like that would be one mechanism, but that starts getting into the how much can we monitor question as well. Joe? Yeah.
I think this is right. I don't know. This might be a Liz question also. As far as definition between restaurant and bar, you know, I know that well because some places that do serve both. But usually, if it's a bar, you have to be 21 to enter. Isn't that such a like a state statute?
Yes, there's been some changes lately to restaurants with bars where minors can sit. Like it used to be, there was usually like an area blocked off. You couldn't sit even at the tables. Now minors can be at the tables with an adult, but not at the like bar, actual bar.
At the physical bar.
That's another way.
Like a tavern or a bar. If it's most of the time in Indiana law, the primary use is defined by sales. But a tavern would be something where they're primarily serving alcohol and food is a secondary or secondary product that they're selling.
Can we ask questions, or is this open discussion? Or?
No, it's not an open discussion. It's a discussion between us and the board.
I think admittedly, and I've said there's a lot of gray area here. I feel like you've already made the determination of what a restaurant is, so maybe it's a moot point, but I will argue this, that if you have food trucks in, if you have to chauffeur people from off-site for an event, and if you have to hire sheriff's deputies to man an event, I don't know any just restaurant that does that. And quite frankly, I've looked at some of those places up north, and they feature their food and they bill themselves as a restaurant as well as a brewery. Nowhere in any of the literature, social media, it's everything from a beer farm to a nano brewery, microbrewery, never is a restaurant mentioned. Whereas, and I'll just say, I've looked in depth at Man Cave Brewing, I've looked in depth at Hop Lore. I mean, they are known for their food. I'd almost say, aside from Hop Lore, I know they're known for their beer, but they're also known as a restaurant. And like I said, I don't think there's an in-between somewhere. But usually when you're having an event, and it's not just private, there are public events, and you have to hire outside law enforcement to come in and make sure everything's done right. You know, look at the 4-H center. You've got to have someone there. That's an event center. That's an event. It's not a restaurant.
Well, and that's getting to the third part. I left off on bar, but to get to the third one, which is the banquet hall / event center. So what I'm working on here, asking for opinion. So it's not really a moot point. So what I'm working with is one of the definitions from last month, kind of tweaked it somewhat here. A facility or quote unquote hall, which is primarily used for rent to accommodate private functions, including but not limited to banquets, weddings, anniversaries, etc., etc. Subset, a little bit more refined definition. Food may be cooked on site So you might actually have a full kitchen. Union 12 has, it's a substantial warming kitchen. I wouldn't call it full kitchen, but you can do some substantial cooking at Union 12. But it would only be in the quantity for that event. And it would basically be cooked for an event, not an open menu, not really open public. So that would be what I would be looking for as a way to define the kitchen element of an event center. Events would be or could be held in restaurants or other uses. There might be other uses that have events as well, not just restaurants. Or they may have rooms to rent for private events, but the regular day-to-day operation would determine the primary use. So if you are a restaurant day-to-day, that would be what we would classify you as, even if you had a random event once a month or had your back room offered for rent, for example. The regular use would be inclusive of, and then further defining that, the regular use would be inclusive of the event space for calculation of standards such as parking. So that would be another component of it. Wouldn't be just a special area that entirely, that starts to get into a different gray area that you're getting into of, hey, we have all this extra space, we're going to hold a music festival or something. That's not the regular day-to-day operation. That's something else entirely. So, and I would say that that's actually not an event center either. That's like a music festival or something else beyond that. So where I'm coming back to though is what is the regular day-to-day operation as opposed to one-off sorts of things? Is it a building that's available for rent day-to-day, or is it something that is a restaurant or a club, for example, that is their day-to-day operation that they then occasionally close down or offer space for rent? So that's what I'm working with. Give me some feedback on that type of thinking.
When we used to do things for the fire department, because I would like not to do things at the fire department because I figured our wives needed more than that. They didn't need to be cooking. And we've been like to Warsaw, to American Table, Boathouse, when the Brownstone was down at South Whitley and several other places. Their primary thing was day by day, their operations was for food, but also they had those private rooms that you could rent also if you made reservations and that.
So I'll give you an example. So I think it's Chivo's, is that how you say it, here in town? Mm-hmm. You can rent out the restaurant for an afternoon if you want to have an event there. They're not going to be serving other patrons that day. You're paying a fee to rent it out, but they're primarily a restaurant. So what we're trying to do is come up with definitions that would apply countywide and not impact every single restaurant. They give us some definitions to work with enforcement, keeping in mind that sometimes restaurants do have events. And sometimes there's some overlap when you know how to.
It's like Stacy's up there where Leesburg. They would shut down for a private party or a private event. I've heard of them doing that on occasion.
I think, Joe, you kind of had an interesting take too. I thought you were going to go off on a different tangent, but the idea of the fire station holding an event, having the fish fries and stuff. Those are events those are kind of public events, but let's say you could close it down for a private event too. Mm-hmm. That is not a restaurant. That is a fire station. That is its day-to-day. Mm-hmm. So it holds an event though. Mm-hmm. So how do we incorporate that? And that's what I'm trying to nail down with this working definition. How do we say what is an event center as a building, as a use, as opposed to other uses that also hold events?
I don't think you can determine that just tonight in the short time we're here, and I think if you're gonna open up that language, then it needs to include a lot more things than just banquet hall, event center, bar, restaurant. I mean, we mentioned tavern, there's a whole host of things.
These uses, these terms are what's in the zoning code, that's why I use it. Event center is, I think it's used once or twice, banquet hall.
You know, I guess what I'm saying is that maybe it needs a relook at the zoning code, that maybe that verbiage needs revised.
I don't disagree. This discussion will help guide what that rewriting would be, though. So.
And bar and tavern tend to be used interchangeably in common discussion. State statute tends to use tavern to describe a place where alcohol is the primary beverage sold.
And the zoning code, for whatever reason, uses bar/nightclub. Not sure why it lumps the two together. So
I've never seen nightclub used in state statute. So.
Because he's sophisticated.
Perhaps you could have.
Yeah,
that might be something. Yeah.
Adding brewery, adding microbrewery, adding somebody said nano brewery, I think. So those are additional things. But again, we're really getting back to holding events. I think, Kelly, that's where you're really hitting on how do we look at what is a incidental occasionally use, but it is incidental in terms of overall scale of the use, but when it happens, it could be large. So if you have an event at a fire station, it may have several hundred people there, and it might be worth regulating, even if it happens twice a year or once a year.
And I will put this forth also because I know Pierceton falls into the same realm, and so does a lot of other fire stations. They not only have a fire station there, but a community room that they rent out.
Okay.
So do you guys. So do you guys down at Richland.
Now we got the community room and the fire station per se.
Yeah. Now, like the community room, I would say when the fire station was built, parking for that community room should have been part of the overall calculation, which is what I mentioned there in that last line. So that would be one way to tackle it, as a known occasional, but a known use that could be happening. So, where I'm headed with this is back to the bar piece of it. Both bar and banquet halls are special exceptions in village commercial. We've dealt with the special exception tonight for the folks in the audience. For the brewing part, based upon what you've heard, based upon what they're doing, do you feel, and this is your interpretation, do you feel what they are doing is not so much a bar, it's more of a restaurant, which would require special exception, in conjunction with a restaurant, as opposed to a restaurant? And then same question for banquet hall. Oh, and then we also have, thank you, Brent, we also have a similar question on the opposite side of the county of having a, what is the situation over there?
There is the Old Pickles in Dunphy that is also zone VC, that is a restaurant, but they are advertising for events as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this isn't just a singular location type of situation. It's going to be on other locations around the county.
And the Old Pickles, the old Oddfellows Hall there in Dunphy, right now, they're probably advertising as much for rental as it is as restaurants. So they're just starting out, though. It's kind of to be determined. So some of what you decide tonight also applies, again, for what we tell them on the opposite side of the county. Do they need to get a special exception, or don't they?
Special exception for restaurant or banquet hall, or we gotta determine
That would be a banquet hall over there. Because, yeah, the restaurant, they don't have liquor there. It'd either be restaurant and or banquet hall for the one in Dunphy. This one has bar as an option as well. The one in Collimer has a bar option as well.
So is it a full-time, trying to be a full-time business there in Dunphy, or?
Yeah, I believe they've got hours for the restaurant. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just looking. I didn't know that whether they did or did not serve alcohol.
Yeah, I don't think they do.
I know holiday hours are Tuesday 11 to 2, Wednesday and Thursday they're closed, and Friday they're open 11 to 2. That's as much research as I've done on their hours.
Primarily a lunch thing.
But they're actively advertising, renting their location out for birthdays, anniversaries, events as well. Now, I don't know what the stipulation is, whether they're providing the food for these gatherings or if it's just a space to rent out. I don't know details, but I could research some of that for you if you guys would like. But just another restaurant situation that is advertising to rent and have events as well.
I'm getting a okay.
So they're village commercial, so they can have the restaurant. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's just if you think they're branching off to also a banquet hall.
And how do we define banquet hall so that we can tell them why they need a special exception?
Like how many events a year, or how many events a week?
Do they qualify as an event venue?
Or just if you advertise an event center, that's.
Well, it's pretty easy with the one that was down there on 700 because that's what they said. Their primary use is a banquet hall event center for wedding receptions.
Yep.
And that was their intended use.
And the paddock is the same way.
Yes.
That it is an event venue. There isn't a restaurant there. There's not they do events. So those are a different animal.
Union 12 is kind of at the opposite end. It is an event center beyond just simply being an event hall. They have many types of events there, which they hadn't planned on when they originally got their approval.
It's another case of that is Cerruti's in Fort Wayne. You know, I've been to meetings over there for the highway they rent it for that reason, for us to have a meeting there and that. So, but also they provide lunch while they cater it. So,
right, they're kind of like Eagle's Nest or whatever it was. Is that what it was over at Eagle Glen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The event center there, where you can rent it out and they cater for whatever you're having there.
So you want to know how many banquets they can have a month to know whether it's a banquet center portion or whether if they just advertise if it's a banquet hall, we need to regulate it.
What I'm looking for you guys, so the Plan Commission and Commissioners set definitions. You guys as the BZA interpret the code though. So if we don't have a definition set in the code, or if we have definition that's gray, it's your place to, and mine initially, and then you guys when I need further interpretation, to figure out how to fill in those gray areas, fill in where we don't have definitions. So that's where we are. And if you wanted to say, hey, we need a definition, Plan Commission, here's what our thoughts are, you guys give us a definition, then we can work again on refining it. I think, Kelly, you actually said that that's where we should be headed. because we don't have definitions. But in the interim, your interpretation of how we define these is where we need to be.
I find it hard to decide what it is when they have no history. They haven't shown us what they do the most of. So as a startup, my opinion would be, what is their intentions? Is their intention to be a banquet hall or a event center, or is it to be a restaurant? And then if you find that they're doing something different, you gotta come, you know, they, just like we told Jason, you gotta come back in a couple of years and we'll look at it again. I mean, how do you know what they're doing if you don't have a history to look at?
And they're running a business, and the point of running a business is to maximize your profits.
Sure.
So you're going to, unfortunately, I will compare it to the animal world and dogs. You know, you're getting a Heinz 57, and that you're getting not just one breed, but you're getting multiple breeds mixed together. So, and that's the way these businesses are starting to operate to maximize their profits or their businesses and that. So
I'll say that, Doug, I agree. You don't necessarily know as a business owner where you're going to head, and Joe, that's kind of what you're saying. From the public standpoint, is they start to do things, and then we're kind of in the same position. No offense to the Esterline, but essentially the same sort of situation. They've started to grow and go in different directions than they had planned, and then we say, "Oh no, you need to get XYZ approvals or rezone or whatever the case may be." So that is the pitfall to that method.
But I don't know how else you can do it.
Yeah. So if you say if you allow them to have 3 events without getting a permit, without coming to the board, is that a fair statement, or you can't operate that way?
Well,
or 5 events before they have to come back before us, or 1 event. You need a number like that, or that you can't operate that way?
I think if you start putting a number on things that just, and we don't enforce, unless we ask them to come back, we don't enforce people that violate the conditions that they have anyhow. So the minute we start putting numbers in, who's going to go do that?
Right.
Nobody.
Who's going to police it?
Yeah, it's it's hard for us to do enforcement across the county given our personnel. So we're reliant on complaints. We are a complaint-based office. That's where most of our enforcement comes from. However, we do have conditions that we do monitor as well. So having numbers, it's somewhat arbitrary, and yeah, it still comes down to who monitors it. So, but you could say once a week, then you start getting into what constitutes an event. So that's yet another definition that we need to get into. So,
right. Is it having a band that just happens to be playing while there's at the restaurant? We've had other restaurants in the county do that.
Yeah. Is it bringing in 100-some people that wouldn't otherwise be at the facility? Is it?
We determine who would otherwise be there.
Yeah, exactly.
Special fundraiser or something for somebody, or
right. And we've had restaurants do that when there's families in the county that have had tragedies. They'll donate proceeds to the family. So that gets hard. You know, every time we restrict or define something, we're also we have to think about the impact it would have on countywide, not just on one particular.
Yeah. And we do have, or at least we have had, I guess I haven't seen them lately since 2020, but we've had 2 music festivals on opposite sides of the county here in the recent past. One actually in South Whitley was an annual event, and one up near Blue Lake as an annual event as well. Those being very, very temporary things. Zoning code doesn't deal with temporary very well, but those 2 were events, but not event centers. So that's yet another avenue and use that we probably should examine, so. It's getting to be 10 o'clock. I'm seeing a lot of tired faces. I'm going to take this discussion and basically start to take it to the Plan Commission and say, hey, we need to better define some of these things. We need to rework village commercial for one. That's on my to-do list for 2026 because Kelly made mention that the intention is not how it's ever been applied. So we need to rework at least that portion, and then while we're doing it, put some attention to some definitions as well.
Would it be, I'm gonna interject here a little bit.
Go ahead.
Do you as a board think it would be beneficial for us to do similar to what we did with Plan Commission on some of the solar code stuff, have a workshop where it would be just us and board getting together to go hash out some of this stuff and get some ideas from you before we would go to Plan Commission? Is that something that we can do?
We could, yeah. It'd be a matter of how much do you want to be in the writing process, because you're the boots on the ground. Well, so is staff, but looking at the special exceptions and so on, as opposed to the Plan Commission that's crafting and dealing with the code language, but not necessarily dealing with the here's how a special exception looks and here's how we deal with it. So, and Jack and Joe, you're on both, but it's the other three of you more.
My impression is the Plan Commission does what they want to do. I'm not saying that's bad or wrong, right or wrong. But how many meetings did we have in the county to do the new zoning ordinance and all that stuff? When it ended up, it's whatever the Plan Commission wanted. So,
and that's fine. I just thought I would.
I'm just saying that's the way it is.
I think it's a great idea, but that is.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean we could easily have both boards do a joint workshop too, and so you three be invited at the same time. Just again,
it's rough. It's tough to
so
what to do.
Bringing it back as a final thought, is there anything that the Esterlines need to do in terms of their property, in terms of special exceptions under the code as it is right now? Does the board feel like what they're doing needs to have a special exception for a bar or banquet center and come back for either of those? Or is it figure it out as we change the definitions?
No one put a condition on it. Yeah. No one put a condition that it's a bar or anything like that.
I felt it was a moot point to put conditions because the conditions from 2022 weren't followed. So,
well, the special exception today was just for the offsite.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not hearing anything saying that under the current code and the way the definitions are currently, they need to do anything. But if definitions change and their business changes, then we'll start to examine it.
I truly believe, as stated in the first one, that an alternative location would be looked at. I understand the pricing of real estate, and that makes it prohibitive, and that you're talking a small town and keeping it in a small town. And like you said, we are a complaint-based organization, and we still have complaints on the whole thing. There are going to be people who like it and people who don't like it, and that to go back what Danny has said, you have to be a good neighbor. If they could find an alternate location for the tap room, I think that would really be a great thing. So if they could keep brewing there, I don't think that would be a problem. But I think that, you know, the tap room and the off-site parking, I'm not sure about that. I've got some questions on that. I'm going to seek some answers on that and everything. So
I think if they come back for the bar, it'd be much the same as what we've already went through, and I don't think it's worth it. Then they keep it to the, I guess I'm not an alcohol drinker, but they keep it to the lower percentage of alcohol where you don't have that issue. I'm not concerned until 4 or 5 traffic accidents or someone gets hurt. So we just be back.
That's a fair statement. We've talked a lot about a lot of conditions, so, and a lot of different aspects, and the code itself hasn't changed. So, okay. Jack, Doug, any thoughts from you?
Say what?
Okay. I really appreciate all of your input, and Brent and I'll review these comments, and I will bring it up with the Plan Commission, like I said, along with a couple other things for this coming year.
all right, with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much. Everybody have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Oh, oh, oh. I have my